Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to turn the clock back all the way to 1982. Why? Because that's when this really remarkable document came out, and it asked a super tough question. What is the future of Alberta's wild rivers? This thing was a warning, a plea, and a plan, all rolled into one.
You have to remember what was going on back then. 1982 in Alberta, that was a time of just incredible growth and prosperity. It was a boom time. But, right in the middle of all that, a group of conservationists took a hard look at the province's majestic rivers. And they didn't see an infinite resource. No, they saw these incredible treasures that were, in their words, living on borrowed time.
And look, this wasn't some fringe idea either. Even the premier at the time, the very well-respected Peter Lougheed, he got it. He recognized just how valuable these natural spaces were. And this quote right here, it perfectly sets up the central conflict of the whole report. How in the world do you balance this deep appreciation for nature with the constant, relentless pressure of development? That's the big question.
Okay, so to really get what they were saying, we're going to walk through the report's main points. We'll start with the warning they put out there. Then we'll dig into the treasures they were trying to protect. After that, we'll see why they felt the future was so in question, and then check out their pretty cool idea for a system for survival. And to wrap it all up, we'll ask that big question. Are these rivers still on borrowed time?
All right, first up, let's really unpack that warning from 1982. The authors of this report really saw Alberta as a province standing at a critical crossroads.
The challenge was pretty clear, right? You had this massive, rapid expansion happening in forestry, agriculture, industry, plus the population was booming. And all of this was putting just immense and often totally uncoordinated pressure on the river ecosystems. It was all this piecemeal development, a project here, a project there, with no big picture plan. And the report was basically screaming, hey, this path is going to lead to loss that we can never get back.
So what was really at stake here? To make their case, the authors didn't just talk in vague, abstract terms about the environment. Nah, they got super specific. They detailed the tangible, real-world treasures of the rivers that were at risk.
First off, there was the incredible recreational value. Fishing was just huge. The report points out that in 1980 alone, Albertans spent over $57 million on the sport. I mean, rivers like the Bow were becoming world-famous spots for anglers.
But it wasn't just about fishing. The thrill of just being on the water, whether it's canoeing, kayaking, or rafting, that was a growing passion. From these calm stretches perfect for a family trip to expert-level whitewater that would challenge even the most skilled paddlers, these rivers really offered adventure for everybody. And beyond all the human enjoyment, the report really stressed the critical ecological role of these river valleys. See, they weren't just channels for water. They were these vibrant corridors of life. They provided essential habitat for countless species of birds, mammals, and of course, the insects that are the very foundation of the ecosystem.
And finally, these rivers were corridors of time. Their banks held the stories of our deep past. Everything from dinosaur fossils being dug up in the Badlands to indigenous petroglyphs carved right into the rock faces to the historic fur trade routes that literally shaped the province. So once they established all this incredible value, the report then pivoted to the threats that were putting it all at risk. And this, right here, was the heart of their warning. The authors laid out a really clear list of dangers. It was like a battle on multiple fronts. You had uncoordinated development projects, water being diverted for industry and agriculture, pollution from growing towns and cities, and even damage caused by just unplanned and uncontrolled recreational use. And to make this really hit home, they focused on a case study that every Calgarian would know, the Bow River. As the city blew up, the pressures on the Bow became absolutely immense, from water quality issues to just the sheer number of people using it for fun. And this is what led to the report's most powerful, most stark warning. The authors stated with zero ambiguity that the Bow River, one of Alberta's most cherished and economically important waterways, was a system on borrowed time. This wasn't some vague problem for the future. It was a crisis happening right then and there.
Okay, so what's so interesting about this report is that it didn't just ring the alarm bell and then walk away. Nope, it actually offered a practical, really forward-thinking solution for how to manage these incredible resources.
Their main proposal was pretty elegant. Stop treating all rivers like they're the same. Instead, they suggested creating a classification system. The whole idea was to first understand the unique natural and recreational values of each river and then create a management plan specifically tailored to protect those values.
They broke it down into two main categories. First, you had natural rivers. These would be the ones that were still largely wild, and the focus there would be on preserving their pristine wilderness character. Then you had recreational rivers, which were ones where human use was already a big thing. For those, the goal would be to manage that use sustainably, with more access and facilities.
And this table is a brilliant example of how it would actually work. So, take the Milk River. Its natural values, the landscape, the wildlife, the views, all rated as outstanding. But its recreational values, kind of mixed. Pleasure craft use was fair, fishing was poor, but camping was excellent. This kind of detailed rating would let planners focus on protecting what made the Milk River so special, while managing its specific uses a lot more intelligently.
Now that was a really forward-thinking plan back in 1982. Which brings us to our final and maybe most important question: what's the legacy of this 40-year-old warning today?
The report really had two simple but powerful goals. The first was to show everyone the absolutely immense value of Alberta's rivers. The second was to hand them a clear plan to protect them, all while urging them that the choice for preservation had to be made right then, now.
Ultimately, Rivers on Borrowed Time was a passionate argument for foresight over short-term thinking. It was a plea to look beyond the next project or the next economic cycle, and to make conscious, deliberate decisions to protect these wild, beautiful, and totally essential parts of the province's identity.
And so here we are, left with this question. The challenges, well, they've evolved. The pressures have definitely changed. But that fundamental conflict between use and preservation, that's still here. Looking at our waterways today, we really have to ask ourselves, did we actually listen to that warning from 1982? Or are Alberta's great rivers still living on borrowed time?